The rich man had everything anyone could ever want. He lived in a huge mansion, surrounded by expensive cars and luxurious items. People admired him for his wealth, and he had everything money could buy. Yet, despite all his success, there was something missing. Every morning he woke up to the same routine, but it all felt empty. No matter how many meetings he attended or how much money he made, he still felt a sense of loneliness. He wasn't someone who went out much. His life mostly revolved around work, business deals, and expensive parties. People saw him as a symbol of success, but deep down, he knew he wasn't truly happy. He had everything, but he didn't feel like he was making a real difference in the world. For years, he had been searching for something more. Something meaningful that could give him a sense of purpose. It wasn't about money anymore. It was about making a lasting impact. The rich man started to wonder if there was more he could do with his wealth, something beyond what others expected of him. He wanted to find a way to use his success to help others, but he didn't know where to start. He thought about all the people in the world who struggled every day, just trying to survive. The rich man realized that maybe, if he could help just one person, it might give his life the meaning he had been searching for. But who? Where? And how? On a sunny afternoon, the rich man was walking through the busy streets of the city. He often took these walks to clear his mind, to escape the constant demands of his world. As he walked, he noticed the struggles around him. People rushing to work, some barely able to make a living, while others seemed to carry the weight of the world on their shoulders. Among them was a man sitting outside a small cafe, looking tired and worn. He wore simple clothes, and his hands were rough from years of hard work. His face, however, held a quiet strength. The rich man couldn't help but notice him. The man didn't seem to be asking for anything. He was just there, trying to make it through another day. The rich man, curious, approached him. He sat down at the table across from the man, offering a smile. "Long day?" the rich man asked, trying to make conversation. The poor man looked up, a bit surprised, but nodded. "Every day's a long day," he replied, his voice quiet but steady. "I work wherever I can just to get by, not much else to it." The rich man leaned forward, his interest growing. "What do you do?" he asked. "I do odd jobs," the poor man said, "fixing things. Sometimes I work in construction. It's hard to find steady work, but I keep trying. I just want to make sure my family has enough to eat." There was a pause. The rich man could see the exhaustion in the poor man's eyes, but there was also something else. A dream, perhaps. Something bigger than just getting by. "I've always dreamed of having my own shop," the poor man continued, looking down at the table. "Just a small place where I can sell things, food maybe, or little repairs. It's a long shot, though. I don't have the money for it." The rich man sat back, his mind racing. He had heard countless stories of people who dreamed big, but couldn't make it because they didn't have the resources. But this man had something different in his eyes. It wasn't just about the money. It was about hope. The rich man felt something stir in him. A decision was starting to form, one that he couldn't ignore. After that conversation, the rich man couldn't stop thinking about the poor man. His words lingered in his mind. "I've always dreamed of having my own shop." The rich man couldn't shake the image of the tired, hard-working man who had so little but still dared to dream of something more. It stayed with him long after they parted ways. That night, as the rich man sat in his lavish home, surrounded by the wealth he had worked so hard to build, something felt off. The expensive furniture, the fine art, the designer clothes, all of it seemed meaningless in the face of the poor man's simple yet powerful dream. The rich man knew that he had the power to change this man's life. But could he? Would it be enough? He spent the next few days thinking it through. There were other ways to help, sure. He could give the poor man some money, or make a donation to charity. But the rich man realized that this wasn't about charity. It was about giving someone the chance to change their own life. It was about offering a foundation, not just a handout. The rich man made up his mind. He would buy the poor man a small shop. Not just any shop, something that could allow him to build his dream, something that could give him the stability he needed. He didn't want to just give him a place to work, he wanted to offer him a future. The rich man knew this would be a surprise, and he liked that idea. The poor man had no idea what was coming. The rich man took care of the details, purchasing the perfect little shop in the heart of the city. It was small, but in the right location, and it had a lot of potential. The rich man made all the arrangements quietly. No one knew about it. He wanted it to be a true gift, something the poor man could never have expected. He imagined the look on the poor man's face when he found out. The idea brought him a strange sense of peace. It was a feeling he hadn't experienced in a long time. Now, it was time to reveal his decision. The rich man couldn't wait to see the poor man's reaction. He had done everything quietly, wanting the moment to be a complete surprise. The small shop was ready, and all that was left was to tell the poor man. The rich man arranged to meet him at the same cafe where they had first spoken. When the poor man arrived, he looked just as worn as before. His clothes were simple and his face still carried the weight of the world. But today, there was something different in the rich man's eyes. A kind of excitement he couldn't hide. The poor man sat down across from him, raising an eyebrow at the rich man's smile. "What's going on?" he asked, not sure what to make of it. The rich man leaned forward. "I've been thinking a lot about what you said, about your dream of owning a shop." The poor man's eyes flickered with surprise. I didn't expect anyone to remember that. It's just a dream, nothing more." The rich man shook his head. "It's not just a dream anymore. I've bought you a shop. It's yours." The poor man froze. For a moment he didn't know if he had heard correctly. What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. The rich man smiled. "I bought a small shop for you. It's already set up. You can start your business whenever you're ready. All I ask is that you make it yours." The poor man's eyes widened and he looked down, unable to believe what he was hearing. His heart raced. "But how? Why would you do this for me?" The rich man shrugged. "Because I believe in you. I believe you have the potential to do something great with it. I want to help you achieve what you've always wanted." Tears filled the poor man's eyes, but he quickly wiped them away. He was overwhelmed, confused, shocked, and incredibly grateful. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. The rich man reached across the table, placing a hand on his. "You do. You deserve the chance to make your dream come true." For a few moments neither man spoke. The poor man sat there, speechless, as the weight of what had just happened settled over him. His life had just changed in ways he couldn't even begin to comprehend. The poor man didn't sleep much that night. The words from the rich man echoed in his mind over and over again. "It's yours." He couldn't believe it. How could someone like him, someone who barely had enough to feed his family, suddenly own a shop? It felt unreal. But the next morning, he went to see the shop. It was small, tucked away in a busy part of the city. The windows were clean, and the door had a fresh coat of paint. Inside, the shelves were empty, waiting for whatever he wanted to sell. There was a counter, a cash register, and even a few chairs for customers to sit. The poor man stepped inside and looked around. It was more than he could have ever hoped for. He could feel the potential in the space. For the first time in years, he felt a spark of hope. The shop was his, and it was up to him to make it work. The first few days were slow. He spent hours arranging the shelves, cleaning the space, and figuring out how he wanted to run things. He used what little money he had left to buy a few basic supplies, a few snacks, drinks, and a couple of tools for repairs. It wasn't much, but it was a start. At first, there were no customers. He stood behind the counter, waiting, hoping that someone would walk through the door. He thought about giving up more than once, but something kept him going. He reminded himself that this was his chance, the opportunity he had always dreamed of. He couldn't waste it. Then, one day, a woman walked in. She needed some tools for a small repair at her house. The poor man helped her with a smile, offering her what she needed. Afterward, she thanked him and left, but she promised to return. It wasn't a huge sale, but it was a start. Slowly, more and more people came in, some for tools, others for food or drinks. The shop began to pick up. The poor man worked harder than ever. He learned to be patient and persistent, doing whatever he could to make the shop successful. Every sale, no matter how small, felt like a victory, and with each passing day, his confidence grew. He could see the change in himself. The fear that once held him back was slowly fading away. Weeks turned into months, and the poor man's shop continued to grow. What started as a tiny, empty space had transformed into a busy little store, filled with customers. Word had spread and soon people were coming from all over the neighborhood. They trusted him, not just because of the products he sold, but because of the way he treated everyone who walked through the door. As the business grew, so did the poor man's confidence. He no longer felt like the man who was always struggling to make ends meet. He had purpose now, a reason to wake up every morning with a sense of excitement. The shop was more than just a place to make money. It was a symbol of everything he had worked for, everything he had dreamed of. The poor man wasn't just focused on his own success anymore. As his shop became more profitable, he started thinking about how he could help others. There were people in the neighborhood who, like him, were struggling to find work. He began to offer jobs to those in need, hiring anyone who wanted to help out. It wasn't much at first, just a few part-time positions. But for the people he hired, it made a world of difference. They now had a place where they could earn a steady income, something they couldn't find in many other places. The poor man had created not just a business, but a small community. The shop was more than just a way to earn money, it had become a lifeline for people in the area. And the poor man, once unsure and fearful of his future, was now a beacon of hope. He was doing for others what the rich man had done for him, giving them a chance when they had none. As time passed, the shop's success allowed the poor man to expand. He was able to offer more services and even started to give back to the community in other ways. He donated to local charities, helped fund small projects for the neighborhood, and offered discounts to those who couldn't afford much. But through all of this, the poor man never forgot where he had come from, or who had given him the chance to turn his life around. One afternoon, after a particularly busy day at the shop, the poor man sat down behind the counter, wiping the sweat from his brow. He looked around at the place he had built, his eyes filled with pride. It wasn't just a shop anymore, it was his life's work. It was everything he had dreamed of, and more. Just then, the door opened, and in walked the rich man. The poor man stood up quickly, surprised to see him after all this time. He hadn't expected to see the man who had changed his life in such a long while. The rich man smiled warmly. "How's everything going?" he asked, looking around at the bustling shop. The poor man smiled back, but there was a hint of nervousness in his eyes. "It's going well, better than I ever imagined. Thank you for everything." The rich man nodded. "I'm glad to hear that." But then, the poor man did something unexpected. He looked down, took a deep breath, and said, I've been thinking about something." The rich man raised an eyebrow. "What's on your mind?" "I want to buy back the shop," the poor man said, his voice steady. "I've worked hard, and I think I've earned it. I want to take full responsibility for it, and I want to make it even better." The rich man looked at him in surprise, his face softening. "You're sure? You don't have to do this. You've come so far. I just wanted to help you get started." The poor man nodded, his eyes filled with determination. "I know, and I'm thankful for what you've done, but now I want to stand on my own 2 feet. I don't want to rely on anyone else. I want to show myself, show everyone, that I can do this." The rich man smiled, a proud look in his eyes. "I understand. I think you've already shown that. You've turned this shop into something special." They stood there for a moment, the weight of the conversation settling between them. The rich man knew this day would come. The poor man had always been driven, and now, he was ready to take full control of his future. The rich man extended his hand. "You've earned it. If you want to buy it back, it's yours." And just like that, the poor man's dream had come full circle. He had started with nothing, but now he was standing tall, independent, and successful. The shop was no longer just a place to work. It was a symbol of his hard work, his growth, and his journey.